there's a way to do law school well, to work smarter, not harder. You don't have to be necessarily, hitting the books constantly if you know how to take notes and if you know how to outline, which not everyone, I didn't know how to do that coming in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's time for another episode of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast, where every single week as your host, I, Dr. Jim Hoven, get to talk with amazing people making a difference in the lives of others, sometimes in the lives of animals, sometimes in the lives of the planet. Today, in the lives of young students who don't even know they might need him yet. And also, this next guest, he's so cool. He and I have had a chance to get to know each other just a little bit because he's a new attorney in our firm, and lots of great stuff. We wanted to talk with, and by the way, just so we get his name is Bennett Harrell, and he is working with us and just getting his license on Monday, getting the board. You pass the bar. It's time to start grinding as attorney. And you've been with us now for a handful of months. And we want to talk about your journey today, Bennett, from going through undergrad, through law school, and what it was like to prepare for a bar. And the reason for those of you watching this is it's a grind. It's
Absolutely
not easy. And for what someone has to sacrifice, there's a lot of give and take in, should I do this? How do I do this? What do I do? And so I think for people to hear that story, it can be really inspirational for them, whether they want to take a journey like going to law school or some other professional school, or just start a new venture. I think some of the lessons that you'll be able to share, because it's so fresh for you, that someone like me that graduated from Cairo School over 33 years ago, I might not remember, and it's completely different in context of culture and everything else, right? So thank you, Bennett, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So first of all, how does it feel to know that starting literally by the time people listen to this, you will be ready to go full bore attorney? How does that feel?
It's nice. I won't have to disclaim myself as a law clerk anymore because there's this thing called unauthorized practice of law. And if I introduce myself as an attorney, then that's not allowed because I'm not an attorney yet. So I won't have to worry about that anymore, which is fantastic. But like more seriously, it's just a big weight off. You spend 3 years in law school working towards passing the bar, and it's always a big point of uncertainty because most people do, but not everyone does. And so you're never sure if you're going to be among that group that passes or if you're going to be among the group that has to retake it. And so just to sort of finally get to that last point in the journey where I am going to be a full-fledged attorney is a real relief.
I love that so much. Let's rewind the clock a little bit. You're at some point in your life going through your mental process about how you might want to spend your years earning money, making a living, a career, whatever. How did you get to decide that attorney was the way that you wanted to go?
Well, it definitely wasn't something that I knew I wanted to do coming out of high school. I think some people have their sights set on it from a pretty young age, and that wasn't the case with me. But I always liked to write. And I always liked kind of reading, and it seemed when I graduated undergrad, I didn't really know what I was going to do with myself. I wasn't, my degree that I had gotten, I was a double major in history and international studies. There weren't really any jobs lining themselves up in those fields, and I decided that law might be sort of a good option for me at that juncture. I talked to my parents, and I did some research, and it seemed like just with my skill set, that was the way to go. So
okay, good. And so you apply to law school, you get into law school, and in the meantime, what was the difference so you got this double major? Mm-hmm. What was the difference in either how you had to study, what you learned, how you learn? Because I know law schools, it's a different kind of thing. Let's say when I went to chiropractic school, there's so much memorization. There's so much, you got to bring in the anatomy and the neurology and the biochemistry, and you got to get all that down. Law school is a little bit different. Is it more of a thought experiment? Explain to the audience what it's like between undergraduate typical studies and law school.
Well, it was a big, I think I grew a lot because of law school. It was a lot harder. I mean, I think that kind of people assume that, but it's a lot of it I found was the people that I was surrounded with in law school versus when I was in undergrad. It's just that they're more sort of, whether it's because they're older and more mature or because they're more the type of person that is sort of driven to apply to law school and get a professional degree. when you're in an environment like that and you're surrounded by driven, hardworking, intelligent people like that, it really pushes you to kind of do your best and, grind and study and all that good stuff in a way that, I knew people like that in undergrad, but it was much more concentrated, much more potent when I went to law school.
Okay.
So I think it was good for me in that respect for sure. And I would say that's the most noticeable difference that I felt like as soon as I got into law school. Those first 3 weeks are just crazy and everyone's so excited and it's this new experience and everyone's still happy about having gotten in, and so
yes.
It was it was like nothing I had experienced before in undergrad.
And when you have these professors, these lawyers, legal professors, do they operate any differently than your typical college professor? Is there more of a, hey, you need to be here, or is there less of that? I know in some college settings, they take roll call and some they don't care, show up for the tests. Is there a big difference in the responsibility of the instructor in law school compared to undergrad, or does it seem pretty much the same from that perspective?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think when you're an undergrad and you're a freshman, maybe there's still a little more disciplinarian, just because you're fresh out of high school and like you're taking these classes that they're gen eds and not everyone is super passionate about them. And so I think the professors maybe feel like they have to kind of crack down on, truancy and that kind of thing. But at least for me, and my experience may differ from other people's, but for me, like once I got deeper into my majors and got sort of more specialized professors and the classes got smaller, there was more of that sort of, you're a grown up, take responsibility for yourself. If you don't show up, that's not my problem. Mm-hmm. And law school, I had a few professors that would take attendance, but for the most part, it was the same thing. You're a grown up. You made the decision to spend all this money and come here in hopes of advancing your own future. And so you need to take responsibility for that. And I'm not going to worry about doing that for you.
And you mentioned earlier that you enjoy writing,
mm-hmm.
and that I know from working with the attorneys in our firm here, there is a lot of crafting of letters and correspondence that has to be done. Do they teach you that in law school, how to write, or do you kind of need to be a good writer to excel in law school when it comes to the test taking and kind of getting the messages?
Yeah, it definitely helps. Frankly, I wish they taught it more. They mandated a year's worth of legal writing classes. So that was 2 classes, 1 per semester. And then I took another one the next semester just because I found it interesting. It was a legal research and writing class, specifically focused on like administrative law, but it was kind of helpful in a lot of other facets too. But I do think it's a really, really important skill. In law, especially in litigation, which is mostly what I do here, it's a lot of, at least, in the 2 months that I've been here, it's been a lot of motion writing and responses and a lot of arguing. And I have a few friends that clerk for judges, and one of the things that they have consistently told me is that, like, they look at the merits of the arguments, but the first thing that's going to catch their eye is this person articulate? Is he making a lot of spelling mistakes? Is his grammar on point? All that. And so that definitely matters a lot, I think, in the sort of skill set that you have to develop.
A lot, and I appreciate that, because I've seen so many times in doctors' notes where either A, they're illegible if they're handwritten, or B, if they're from some sort of computer-generated program, they don't get audited, and so there's some silly mistakes. And it does, as a reviewer of notes, it makes you go, was this person serious about the care they were giving at all? So I appreciate you saying that. When people are young, one of the things that I've heard many, many times when it comes to people going to law school, my son or daughter loves to argue. They'd be a great attorney. Is that in actuality what you found going through, that the people that can, quote unquote, argue better are better students in law school?
Maybe it's the people who are, maybe it's like a chicken and egg thing. Like the people who are better students just end up being better at arguing. I don't know that it's necessarily that they like to argue more. But I guess so. Yeah, it was funny coming in when I started meeting people and making friends as a 1L. We would argue all the time, like constantly. Everyone was very like eager to sort of show off like how smart they were and like how good they were at it and all that. And so,
like Top Gun.
Yeah, a little bit, maybe a little less intense, but yeah. So I guess so. I don't know if I know that for certain, but I could see that.
Okay. Well, what about balancing life in law school? In other words, it's not all about just studying. You have extracurricular activities. What'd you do for fun? How did you balance the rigors of the academics that you had to do it, and if you had to work versus scholarship versus whatever, and having fun? How was that process for you?
Well, it was interesting. I think my class, which was the class of 2023, kind of uniquely struggled with it because we came in during COVID as 1Ls, and so we didn't really meet each other in person for about a year.
Wow.
So we were meeting each other over like group texts and group me messaging and in class over Zoom. And our professors did their best to kind of have us interact with each other, but there was never that sort of immediate sense of camaraderie that I've heard from like other people who started like a year after us. So that actually made studying a little easier. Honestly, you had way more time to yourself because you were just bumming around your apartment all the time.
Sure.
But after that, when we finally started to kind of mingle and the school started opening up again, it was definitely a struggle at first to sort of balance work and figure out there's a way to do law school well, to work smarter, not harder. You don't have to be necessarily, hitting the books constantly if you know how to take notes and if you know how to outline, which not everyone, I didn't know how to do that coming in. Mm-hmm. And I would say that took probably a semester or two for me to figure out like what I need to take, the things that the professor is saying that I need to take down in class versus the things that, they're just saying and probably won't be on the exam, and how do I study to the test? And it's very formulaic after a certain amount of time. But once I had that figured out, like when I was a 3L, it wasn't too bad. I mean, but obviously the 2 or 3 weeks before exams are just a nightmare. Yes. But we made the time to have fun and to hang out with each other and just kind of live life, especially in Colorado. You want to like get out in the mountains and you want to see all the sights, and we were able to do that for sure.
Nice. And what were some of the challenges that you faced? Was there anything as you look back on it like, whew, that was a mountain I had to climb. That was a challenge. Anything that really sticks out to you?
Yeah, I had this admin law class when I was a 2L that was really tough. And what I ended up doing was I wrote like this 40-page outline on like Microsoft Word, like on my computer.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I had it down, and so I ended up handwriting the whole thing on like a legal pad. Because I just wanted to make sure that I had figured everything out and that I understood all the concepts, because it was very esoteric to me at the time. Ended up working out okay. But definitely coming out of that exam, which I remember that was one of the exams I felt the worst about in law school, having taken it. But I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that's over.
Yeah.
That was like an achievement.
Was there any lesson that you took? What I found in my life is that some of the biggest challenges that I go through provide me some of the best lessons that I can learn to apply in different contexts in my life. Did you take anything from that enormously inefficient double assignment and that mountain challenge that helps you now as you're moving forward into the practice of law?
Yeah, I think it was an exercise in figuring out time management skills for sure, because it took forever, obviously. And just in general, I think law school is a great way to learn how to study if you don't have great study skills coming in, because it's sink or swim, Mm-hmm. So that was one thing. My time management skills improved dramatically in law school. I think my professional communication skills, like emailing people and staying in touch and making sure that if you're part of a professional team, everyone kind of knows what's going on. That was something I had never really had to deal with because I just waited tables in undergrad, and law school, and really more so the internships I did throughout law school, but law school too really kind of taught me how to do that in a way that is sort of professionally acceptable. So I think that's probably the most valuable thing that law school taught me, honestly, was just how to work in a professional environment and how to submit good work product.
Nice. And what about when you started prepping for the bar? So for people that don't know, just because you graduate from law school doesn't mean you get to start practicing law. You have to go to the various state or whatever and take a bar exam that is designed to, how should we say, qualify and make sure that the candidate is appropriately trained and ready to start serving the public. It might be described that way. What was that preparation like for you? What did it feel like? Were you nervous? Were you confident? Just kind of walk us up to that exam.
Yeah. So what you do is you don't have to do this. There's no like mandated way to study for the bar, but there are a million different prep courses you can take. And the two most popular are called Barbary and Themis. And so you pay like an exorbitant sum to have access to these. And then you can kind of start, it's like quote unquote self-guided, but ideally you're supposed to start as soon as your last semester of law school is over. With these study programs. And I think I skipped a week. So I started a week after so I like took a week off. And it's really stressful. Like it's really, really stressful. They have you doing like 7 to 8 hour days every day. I was doing it 7 days a week.
Wow.
And you're doing practice problems, you're watching videos, you're reading assignments. I think there's an argument to be made that there's a more efficient way to do it, but that's sort of the most accessible way that most law students take it. And Barbary, I think, has like an 85% pass rate if you get past a certain amount of the course. So it works for most people, Mm-hmm. But yeah, and as you get into like July, the bar was July 25th and 26th, so it's a 2-day exam. And as you get into July, it really gets pretty intense. I was doing flashcards constantly, and I was very keyed up, very stressed out. All my friends were too. I wasn't eating very much. And then the exam rolls around on July 25th. You're not sure if you're prepared or not. You just go in and kind of vomit out a ton of information onto the page. The first day for us was essays. So
all essays, all writing again.
Yeah. So there's 2 essay sections. The first one, I can't remember the acronyms, but the first one is basically there's like 14 topics that might be on 6 different essays. And you don't know what the topics are going to be exactly, but you know it's going to be from this set of 14 topics. So you have to prepare for all.
Wow, for all 14.
Yeah, I don't know if 14 is the number, but it's something like that.
Yeah.
And then 6 of them are on the essays, and so I did that. And then the second half of the essay day is a little more pragmatic, a little more practical. And what they do is they give you it was 2 different essays, and they give you, it's like in a self-contained legal universe. And what that means basically is they give you a ton of documents, they give you a bunch of laws. You don't have to worry about anything, about any memorization. You just read the documents, read the laws, read the task that the prompt assigns you, and then you do it. And there's 2 of those. And then the next day, that's the end of the essay day. The next day is all multiple choice. And I think it was 200 questions. In 2 different 3-hour segments, and then you get like a lunch break in between. And that's worth 50% of the exam, and that's the thing that most people prep the most for. It's kind of the most known and most important part of the bar exam to do. And that was really people always say you never feel good coming out of the multiple choice section, and that was definitely the case for me. Like,
that was true.
Yeah, I didn't feel bad necessarily, but I really just had no idea if I'd done well or not.
Yeah. What do you have to pass? Do you know? Like,
it depends on the state, and it's graded on a 400-point scale, but I think it's something like 90% of people get between like a 240 and like a 320 or something like that. So it's like a bell curve. Mm-hmm. And in Colorado, you have to get a 270.
Okay.
Which is, I think, about 60% correct.
Okay. And the essay weighs 50%, and then the multiple choice weighs 50%?
So basically the multiple choice is 50%, and then one of the essay sections I think was 30%, and the other one was 20.
Got it.
And the essays are weighted to the multiple choice. I don't know exactly how the bar does the weighting, but yeah.
So fascinating to me. And how did you deal with the stress? This people can benefit from, because we all deal with stress, right? And when you're under this high pressure, there's a deadline coming. I remember when I took my chiropractic board, a lot of chiros did not pass the first time they took Colorado. It was very challenging, and so I didn't want that to be me. So I, like you, put all my time in. But man, I remember it even being so long ago, such a stressful time for me, because I thought I have to pass. What did you do to manage the stress of this upcoming, like, this tells me what my future looks like for the next 6 months?
Yeah. It's a great question. I don't know if I did it well. I have a dog that was actually super helpful. Like if I was ever like really feeling down or like really feeling overwhelmed, I would kind of just hang out with her, take her on a walk, go out. And Colorado is such a perfect place to do stuff like that. We'd, go out to the mountains for an hour or two. And sometimes I would take the day off, like if it was really bad. Mm-hmm. And I think that's totally okay. I don't think you really have to kill yourself, because at some point I think you're reaching a point of diminishing returns. My fiance was amazingly supportive. That was definitely helpful too. I'm not sure I could have done it if I were living alone. She would, bring me food and just kind of words of encouragement and things like that.
So good.
Yeah. But there's really no way around it. It's just going to be kind of rough for a few months, and that's kind of the price you pay.
Yeah.
And then odds are you'll pass, and it'll be something you don't really have to worry about anymore.
What did you do from the time that you took the bar exam, until the time that you found out? Obviously, you were here with us and doing law clerk deeds, so you were working, keeping your mind busy, that kind of stuff. Was there anything, did you think about it a lot of, oh man, I wonder if I'm going to pass, or did you put it out of your mind and be like, it is what it is at this point, I just wait till the message comes?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Yeah, that actually reminds me, I was working here before the bar a little bit too.
Yeah,
I think
right.
I started in June.
That's right. Yep.
I was only doing 1 day a week, which was nice. Like right after the exam, I put it out of my mind completely. Mm-hmm. And for about a month, it stayed that way. Mm-hmm. But the results released, I think, on September 28th. And once we got into September, with each passing day, I started to think about it more and more. My friends were talking about it more and more. One of my buddies moved to Washington, and theirs released like 2 weeks before ours. And so when he passed, and when he said that, I think that was when I was like, oh my God, it's coming.
It's almost time to find out.
And then after that, it was pretty much just constant. Yeah. And then actually, Maddie and Jess were in my office when I got the results.
Oh, no kidding.
Cool. Yeah.
That's part of your team here at the law firm that you're working. They're mentoring you and teaching you the ways of being an incredible lawyer. So you guys are all together, and all of a sudden, the email comes in, and how did that go?
Well, the email actually, Maddie was like on my computer, like we were like on the bar website, and she was like trying to figure out where the results were, because I thought that the results should have come in by then.
Okay.
So she was like refreshing the page, and then we saw like that I had passed at like the same time, and then of course like freaked out. But
yeah. I bet it was cool to have some people around you right when you saw. I bet that was a pretty cool feeling, as opposed to, I'm by myself.
Yeah.
I got to open this. Oh crap.
Yeah. It definitely took my mind off it a little bit, which was nice.
Yeah. And now you're getting ready to be a practicing attorney. Talk to me a little bit about mentorship. Did you have mentors along the way that helped you either through undergrad and or law school? So, and the role that they played. And now you mentioned to me earlier that you're really appreciative for working with Jess and Maddie and the rest of that team, whether it's Joe or, Jared or whoever it might be, that they're helping you overcome pitfalls that you wouldn't have even seen had you not been able to watch them. Talk a little bit to us about mentorship.
That's actually, it's probably one of the coolest things about law school to me, is how supportive actual lawyers are of law students who are kind of trying to get their foot in the door. I actually just had dinner with one of my mentors from my first internship after 1L last night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we're still in touch, and it's just, law school is so much to take on your own, and that's not to say you can't do it on your own, but having experienced attorneys who are willing to give you career advice and willing to answer legal questions you might have and willing to help you improve your skill set is such a game changer. And that was true when I was a 1L. It was true, like I got my summer internship after 2L from a mentor who referred me to an attorney that she knew. And since I've gotten here, I mean, law school is good for a lot of things, but it doesn't necessarily prepare you for practice in like a precise way. And so people like, Maddie and Jess and the rest of the lit team have been fantastic in terms of just kind of shaping me into hopefully a better attorney. So
nice. What are you looking forward to most about being a practicing lawyer now that you've gone through the school? I remember when I was in my chiropractic training, I couldn't wait to get my hands on patients, right? We were, basically blasting each other before we could work on patients and doing all this work and all this stuff. I couldn't wait to get my hands on patients and make a difference in their lives, and thought nothing of the business side of things, just literally thought of changing lives with my skill set and my knowledge and my hands and all the rest of it. So I had that perspective. Mm-hmm. What is it now that you've come to this point in your journey? What are you most looking forward to helping people with or getting from your legal career?
I think the thing that I'm most looking forward to is having the knowledge base that's sort of required to help clients out with like any question they might ask. Like I've been working with on a couple cases with Randy, and I'll get client emails sometimes, and I won't always know what to say just because I'm so new and my knowledge base is not broad enough to necessarily. So I'll have to forward their questions to a paralegal or to Randy, and I'm really looking forward to just being able to help people more directly. I think that's going to come with time.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to going to trial. I was sitting in on a trial that Jess was first chair on last week, and it was really cool to see her kind of, in the zone.
Yeah, she's a tiger. Yeah. Tigress. She's a tigress.
And so, yeah, I think just kind of, I've spent 3 years in anticipation of getting into litigation, and now we're kind of finally there. So
that's beautiful. And talk to me about what you find fascinating about personal injury, because you could have gone anywhere to do any kind of law, right? And look to get into trial. What is it that you look to achieve for your clients, our clients, in the personal injury realm?
Yeah, so for most of law school, I've focused on plaintiff side work. Just because I think that it's great when you get to help people out, who are kind of down on they're not like big companies. They don't have a ton of financial resources necessarily, but they come to you and they have problems that need to be fixed. And the legal system is so opaque and it's so dense, and it's so hard to navigate it's hard enough to navigate, for people who have training in it. It's even harder to navigate when you just have no idea what you're doing. There's so many little procedural things. And, I find plaintiff side work really appealing in that regard because people come to you needing help and you can help them. And I think it really boils down to that. I did plaintiff work in employment and labor law before this. And it was a pretty easy switch to personal injury because really there's the clients are very similar. They've been wronged and they want to set it right.
Beautiful. I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
If you've come across, or been given one piece of advice that helped you make it through all the turmoils and trials and tribulations of undergrad, law school, getting through the bar, what would that piece of advice be that all of us could take in, learn from, and apply in some way?
In any context?
Any context.
Man, probably start things early. If you have a deadline in any sort of assignment, that was something I was not great at in undergrad. I had as I think many people do, I had a big problem with procrastination, and just makes your life so much more painless if you spread it out over a few days, and you don't have to worry about the stress. I'm sure it makes you live longer. So
that's true. I like that a lot. And it'll make your hair not turn gray as fast.
Exactly. Give you a couple more years.
Exactly. So if someone wanted to learn more about your journey through law school, or they wanted to talk to you about maybe they could become a lawyer, or they just wanted to reach out and say, man, I've got a problem, maybe you can help me with, how would the best way for them to reach out to you directly be?
Yeah, well, I guess it would be on the Ramos website, because I think I'm finally up there now.
Yes, so you are.
I believe my office phone, at least, is on there. And so, just give me a call. I'd be happy to help.
Absolutely. And for those of you, if for whatever reason you can't find him on the website, you can call 303-733-6353, and you could ask for Bennett, and our team could guide you to him. So Bennett, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing this journey. And for those of you watching or listening, I hope that you'll take inspiration from the journey that Bennett went through. He came up against it. He made it through. He persisted. and now he's on the other side. So again, great to have you as part of our team. You've been a perfect addition to what we've been doing. Now to watch you take this next step, it's a real joy for all of us, and we know that you're going to kill it. So again, thank you for joining us. I know you got a busy schedule, and we'll look forward to seeing what's next.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.